Hey, welcome back, everybody. We have a next very interesting speaker coming up now. Her name is Adrienne Tacke. She is a senior developer advocate for MongoDB and is also a published author of the book Coding for Kids Python, as well as a LinkedIn learning instructor who specializes in cloud development courses. So if you're interested in Azure web development, go check it out. She's here today to share with us her experience in the industry and how there is no developer uniform. So go ahead. I'm going to leave now.
Thanks, Gordon. Hello, everybody. ¿Cómo está? I am very excited to be here. This is my first talk of the year, and I'm very excited that it is here and I am talking to all of you. So without further ado, I want to ask all of you a question. When you think about the words software developer, software engineer, principal developer, any of these things, when you ask someone in your family what they think of when you mention anything tech related, let alone the word software developer, what comes to mind? What are the words that describe this person? What are your own personal experiences with who you see fit this name, this label? What do you see in the movies and TV shows? Who do you feel fits those names and those labels? It's kind of expected that everything has been told to us that this is the de facto standard, right? It's someone who looks kind of nerdy, who doesn't dress well, is a white man, is in the basement, talks to nobody, doesn't really have those social skills, and that's all they do is just code, program, do whatever they want. And it kind of seems kind of silly in this day and age. You know, you're probably thinking, well, yeah, that was what it was before. That's what we've been told, or that's just what we see, but it's not really like this anymore. We know better than that. We see everyone else that does not fit this mold, and we kind of say that's not really the only definition of a software developer. Or do we? Let me tell you about a story about the time that I became a meme. So when I started my journey as a software developer, I at the same time started an Instagram account. And at that time, I just really wanted to start it because it was new-ish to me. I didn't start it yet. And I wanted to see what it was about. And as I started going through that, I saw there were actual other software developers. But at the time when I would search for software developer, software engineer, programming, anything that would actually interest me or is closely related to what I was currently doing in my job, it would show up with very, very few women, let alone any other kind of picture other than maybe some fancy desktops or some guy showing his code, right? Or a guy in general. And so I started sharing my journey on there. And at one point, one of the photos that I shared accidentally became a meme. I didn't intend for it to be. I was just trying to live my life and say, hey, you know, we're out here. There are other people that fit a definition of a software developer. And so this became a thing. It was like the series of events were, oh, cool, I became a meme. And then I went to go read the comments. I'm like, I became a meme. And so at first I'm like, okay, that's kind of cringy. Like, whoever puts these things together, that's okay, cool, great. But what was worse was that when I started to go through the comments, it told me that that story of software developers being a specific kind of person hadn't really changed. In fact, these were the kinds of comments that I was seeing. I've never seen a developer who wears high heels. I've never seen someone who wears those clothes wearing those clothes, she's more likely looking for the Snapchat button. Girls that are developers would never dress like this. The girl in the picture looks more like a PM, like a product manager. So it's like a double whammy, saying not only do devs not dress this way, but for some reason, a product manager is the only kind of person that dresses this way and is not on the same level of a programmer. It's like, it's just all bad. I'm absolutely positive she's just standing there doing nothing, only posing for the camera. You can't be a programmer and look that good, or girls who code don't look like that. Ha ha ha. And of course, take this with a grain of salt, right? This got onto Facebook, not by my choice. And it's just the internet is a wild beast. There's all kinds of people on there. And this is what happens when you get memes like this. And so thinking about this, I'm like, unfortunately, as I entered my career, I said, well, this is kind of expected. Like, I was mentally prepared to expect these kinds of comments, not just on the internet, but intrinsically feeling that my coworkers were thinking this, even though they weren't saying this out loud to me. They were showing it in their actions of not really believing some of the arguments I've had when we have technical discussions, or saying, well, she's just a junior developer, or she doesn't know any better. Let's not listen to her side of things. So all in all, this series of comments that I've compiled here really showed me that, okay, things have not really changed in the brohood, these kinds of people, right? But then what was worse were I saw the comments from the other people, the women, the sisters that are supposed to be supporting us, the ones who are supposed to be lifting each other up. We're already having a hard enough time as it is trying to make ourselves feel like we're supposed to be here, to prove ourselves, even though we have nothing to prove, and to just ultimately do our jobs and get the experience that we need and go through our career just as anyone else would. Well, we're already suffering from that kind of imposter syndrome in general. This showed me that there was still lots of work to do when it came to other women supporting other women in tech. So these are the same kinds of almost internalized misogyny that these people were saying in these. Show me program a girl who doesn't wear clothes like that. She won't look like the girl in the photo. Are you sure she's a programmer? Because typically programmers don't even have time to brush his or her teeth. So you see inklings of that stereotype so deeply rooted in everybody. But when I mentioned in the beginning, when I said, is this really still a thing? We don't really believe that the hacker type, this symbol of the software developer, is still pretty prevalent. But unfortunately, in this specific experience, it very much was. And so after learning and seeing all of this, there were some good things. You know, there were some people who recognized that it was me, and they tried to point out in the comments, oh, this person's not an imposter. They even linked my Instagram account and said this person is a real person. It's a real developer. But you know, that became the end of that. I kind of just went through, got upset a little bit, and then forgot about it. And so what this tells me is that there's so much more to do when it comes to changing our mindset about what a developer is. And so if there's anything I would like you to learn from this silly story, it's that there's no official dress code to be a developer. It sounds silly even saying it out loud, but I say it so loud because everybody needs to know and everyone needs to be reminded. It's not one or the other. If you wear the whatever you think the typical dress code is, whether that's jeans and a black hoodie or whatever it is, very casual clothing, whatever you wear, it has no bearing on your experience. It has no bearing on your skills, and it has no bearing on whether or not you should be taken seriously as a developer. And yes, some people like to kind of not start a fight, but try to play devil's advocate and say, well, what if you're going for a job interview? You want to be in a suit and tie. Of course, do that. If your company is a more professional company and they actually have a business dress code, yes, there's a dress code there. Although right now I think we're all I think, working from home mostly. So dress code is anything a little bit better than sweatpants, I hope. But the point is, it doesn't matter what you're wearing, wear what you feel comfortable in. Don't do what I did, where at a point in my time in my career, I said, you know what, maybe I should be wearing less, dresses and heels and things like that, so that I am taken more seriously. And that did not work for me. I went back and it's just not me. So the point is, there's no dress code. Wear what you want. It bears no weight. And the more that you feel comfortable in yourself and do your job as a software developer, and other people see that there are different kinds of developers, that will greatly increase this movement for us to believe that there truly is no developer uniform, and completely eradicate this silly stereotype once and for all. So speaking of memes, another thing that is very prevalent, at least first started, and when you're kind of getting your bearings straight in this industry, is there are a lot of programmer wars. And I'm sure you've heard about a few of them. So there's the inevitable tabs versus spaces thing. There's someone who uses an operating system. This operating system is better than the other. You're a real developer if you use Linux. You're a silly non-developer if you use Apple or Windows. Front-end developers are not as good as back-end developers. JavaScript is a terrible language, or it's the best language. I mean, there's all kinds of different memes that have been made thus far about programmer culture in general. And I'm not saying that they're not funny and that you can make these and have a little bit of comedic humor as we go through our journeys in tech. Where it becomes a problem is when you're just starting out and you see these kinds of memes, you almost internalize it and feel like this is the standard that you have to meet to. So for example, a very, very common one that I saw all the time was front-end developers are less than back-end developers. I saw it all the time. If you worked on front-end, you only dealt with design, you only did easy work, you only did things that didn't matter. And that was a very, very prevalent thing. You still see it today where, the top tier programmers are full stack or back end or whatever. And what I want to tell you is that memes do not reflect the real world. Okay? Everything is just as important. In fact, if you don't know how to create a simple design, I think you shouldn't call yourself a developer. And I say that not to be gatekeepy. I say that because every single part of this industry is important. One is not better than the other. One does not make you superior to another because you're using 5 different languages, or you're using a specific operating system, or you're using this kind of JavaScript framework. There are all these really silly wars and debates going on, trying to put others down, especially beginners, especially juniors, and just kind of silo people into these unnecessary blocks to kind of make themselves feel better, or say, well, I may be this far in my journey, but at least I am not as bad as this. Well, here's the tip for you. Everybody was a junior at one point. Everybody came across the same struggles as you did. Everybody had to learn all of the different things that you are probably going to learn or are currently learning right now. And so when you see these memes, I'm not saying, don't laugh at them. Some of them are actually pretty intelligent and funny about it, but don't internalize them. Don't think and see that when you do find some peers who are on a Windows machine or who is starting out as a front-end dev, don't look down on them. Don't say, oh, well, this person probably doesn't have the experience I do because I have 3 years working on Linux. That's what tends to happen, and that's where these memes come from. And so if anything that I could tell you about as you navigate your journey and see these kinds of things is don't take them in, don't internalize them, and definitely try to fight against them if you see it being, used as an argument in the real world to put others down. The last thing that I want to dedicate a kind of a larger portion of this talk to before I get into questions, and if you have any questions, please put them into the channel. I will answer them as best as I can. I especially love to answer any specific questions you have directly that you may have. So the last thing that I want to kind of share is that we're constantly bombarded by this question and constantly bombarded by this. It's if you've gone into this role, if you're going and setting out to be a programmer, software developer, somebody in tech, you need passion to succeed. You look at every single article that tells you, or when you're asking, what do I need? What do I need to do to become the best programmer? What do I need to do to succeed in this industry? And every single person, myself included, when I was started, said, you need passion to succeed. Hustle culture is completely ridiculous right now. It's overblown. People are glorifying 60-hour work weeks, saying, oh, after I come home from work solving 10 bugs, I do work on this side project that's going to be a startup, and it's hopefully going to be a unicorn, and then I'm going to sell that and then start a serial entrepreneur and start those other things and become the next, Elon Musk or something. And we are constantly bombarded with this imagery. We see it in the conversations, hear it in the conversations, and see it in our circles. We see it on the internet all the time, on Instagram, on Twitter, everywhere that developers are. It's just constant. And I'm here to tell you that passion isn't everything. If you want to go into tech because it is a reliable source of income and it makes good money, and that's it, that's fine. Don't let anybody tell you that you don't belong here or you are, taking advantage of tech and are not a real developer because you don't live, eat, sleep, and breathe code all of your days and hours. If you're not coming home and working on some other coding project, that's okay. You can have a life outside of your job. You can have a life outside of coding. And this goes the other way too. Sometimes when I bring this up, people are like, well, you need passion to succeed. I'm not saying you don't need it if you want to be the very best. If you enjoy programming, I'm saying you don't need to be passionate about it to enter at all. And that's something that's been very difficult for a lot of people to understand. So do it if you want to do it for the money. Do it if you think you are interested in it. The other thing about this is that it doesn't always have to be code. There are so many avenues of getting a position in tech that, sure, having coding experience is important, but there could be something else that you find that better aligns with what actually interests you. For example, people think that they need to learn code and go into a very strict programming job, but there are deviations of that still allow you to go in. If you like to draw, there's a good friend I had who was going in and was majoring in computer science, but she absolutely loved to draw. She's amazing at it. She likes to draw comics in her spare time. She likes to experiment with different art styles. And I told her, look, if this is what you enjoy, but you still feel like you need the backing of being in the tech industry, find something that combines the two. People are doing that all the time. There's jobs that focus on being a designer, a motion graphic designer. You can draw for game development and create the scenes or level designs or character designs. You can focus on building the strategy for some of the marketing aspects of software companies. There are many variations of how you can be in tech, but still find how the things that you are good at and things that you enjoy can still fit into the tech industry. So for everybody else who actually does enjoy, because there are people like that. There are people who absolutely love to code. They code for their job. They code something on the side when they are de-stressing and scaling down from work and winding down. They do coding puzzles because they like to, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that you are the better person. That doesn't mean you're better than someone who does not do that all the time. And that's something that I think we all need to kind of remember. I'm not arguing the fact that if you dedicate a lot of your extra time to studying and learning more about programming, that you will not have slightly better leg up than someone if you were competing for the same job. I'm not arguing that. You will. What I'm saying is if you are trying to compare two people, one who truly, truly enjoys programming all the time and someone who may just do it for their job, but otherwise does something else on their weekends or after work, that they are both just as competent in the job that they do, and they both belong in a developer position or whatever tech position that they are currently in, that they don't have to constantly be coding all the time to be taken seriously. And what we've seen so far is that if people kind of exude this personality that they just eat, sleep, breathe code, that by default they should be better, that's kind of a bias that we need to take back and say, look, you know, these kinds of peoples we kind of skip code reviews on, or we just assume that they know better and everything that they're doing is correct. You know, that's like another aside. Everybody should go through a code review process, but the point is both people are just as competent and belong and can still be a developer, even though they have different passions. So out of these 3 lessons, I want to remind you that when I say there is no developer uniform, that encompasses all the different things about the culture and the industry that we see that kind of point to what a real developer is. That's the dress code, that's the tools that we use, that's the languages that we learn and use at work or on the side, and that's the level of passion that is supposedly needed in order to be good or be considered good or a real developer, a real programmer. And I'm here to tell you and remind you that, again, there is no dress code. Wear whatever you want, that memes do not reflect the real world. And if you see it being used in the real world to put others down, it is part of your duty to be, as part of the developer community, to shut that down real fast. Because if we don't do that and continue to let this perpetuate, this part of the stereotype will never die. And lastly, passion isn't everything. Don't let the hustle culture influence you. Don't let it make you feel like you're not up for it, that you are not working just as hard. Nobody should be working 60-hour work weeks. Nobody should be glorifying not getting sleep because they were working on a bug till 4 in the morning. Nobody should be doing that. And glorifying it and saying that this is the only way. It's not. And if you have something else that you like to do other than programming for your job, do it. And the last part about that also is if you're also in here just because it makes good money, that's okay too. Don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. So there is no developer uniform, and everything that I've said points to the fact that this has completely changed. We're slowly starting to change the perception we see in the middle of the dark, dimly lit room of a guy coding all day long, only on a MacBook. Every day, more people are joining, more people are finding ways to get involved in the tech industry, whether that's through development or game design or any robotics. There's so many things in tech, but more and more people are joining and more people are breaking the stereotype. And if we continue to do this and continue to stay strong in what we are and show that development is just a part of our personality, then I think we can all finally break this silly stereotype once and for all. So salamat, that is my talk. I hope you enjoyed it and hope you have learned something that can help you spread this kind of message to the rest of your peers who are in tech. If you have any questions, I think we do have some time left. I will look. I think Gordon might come back and moderate. But if we don't get to it in the time, I will be on the Discord. So look for my channel, Adrienne Tacke. And then you can also find me on Twitter. I have all my tutorials and whatever I'm up to in the tech industry on there. So thank you.
Thank you for such a powerful talk on a very interesting topic and important topic. In fact, we have a diversity discussion panel tomorrow,
Sweet.
so be sure to attend that as well. We have one question here from Veronica. She's asking, what type of advice would you give for putting in the same amount of effort in both interests for someone who has two different interests? Um, I believe she was talking about drawing and so art and drawing and coding. Mm,
Yes. So I think in this pandemic, as we've all been kind of stuck at home, we've seen that we needed to find ways to fill our boredom, right? Um, I mean, the percentage I give you is not going to be, it needs to come from you. So if you truly enjoy art and drawing and you want to do that more than, reading up on the latest release for the .NET framework, for example, do it. You choose what you feel is right. If you feel like you don't have enough time uh, put towards, exercising your drawing skills or art skills or whatever that is, then make time for it. Make those the priority, because those are the things that make you happy. And if you feel like you need to combine the two, if that is something of interest to you, a lot of people do that with their interests. They try to find something that combine it. So, for example, one of my good friends, she also loves drawing, and she combined the two by creating programmer related stickers. So she draws these stickers, and they're kind of like silly programmer jokes or like women in tech stickers. And that's the way that she found to combine the two things that she likes. And that allows her to devote a lot of time to both. So if there's some way that you can combine those two, you can do that. Another important part about that too is that a lot of people are also saying, well, find something that you like to do and monetize it. You don't have to monetize it. Like, it comes back to that hustle culture thing where like everything has to make money. If you don't want to, then you don't have to, and you don't have to feel guilty about not trying to monetize your thing. Do it because it makes you happy. And I guarantee you that the more that you do things like this and give your mind a break from coding, the better you'll be, because you'll be more clear headed and not stuck on the same thing and so super focused on one specific thing. It's always nice to be a well rounded person.
Thank you. I think we have two more questions. I mean, sorry, 2 more minutes.
Mhm.
I have a question for you if you don't mind.
Sure.
So, my girlfriend is in tech, a strong, independent woman in tech. What can I do to best support her, right? Because I'm a man and I can't, like sometimes it's hard to understand the other perspective, right? So, what would be an advice that you could give me?
That's an awesome question. I say treat her how you would treat any of your other programming buddies. And I
Mm,
say that in the sense that if any one of them asked you a question, how do you respond back to them? Do you
mm,
give them kind of like a, did you try this, this, and this? Or do you tell them, well, give them a Google link or something? Don't give her special treatment just because she's a woman. I think that's something that has been very frustrating for a lot of people, because they feel coddled and they feel like, a baby being held, and that, oh,
right.
you're so good, and like you're reaching out and being strong and being in this field. They are their own person,
Mm,
and they are just as capable as any person. It doesn't matter what they look like. So if she asks for some help, give it to her, and just treat her as equally as possible. I think that's probably the one thing that will apply to everybody.
thank you. Catalin had a question. He's asking if there is a MongoDB in Vancouver.
Ooh, good question. I am not sure. We are all over the place. I can get back to you in the Discord. I can do a quick Google search, but we are all over.
Right. And one last thing, Deborah had a question. She's saying, I'm pretty new to development and I have found that I don't really know the lingo used among experienced techers. It was usually something that scared me a little bit about pursuing a tech degree. I don't sound like a programmer. How would you tackle situations in which you feel out of place, or situations where uh, you don't feel like the only one?
That's a great question. That's another thing that I like to talk about, which is a lot of our documentation and tutorials are very much based on people who already have programming experience, and it needs to change. So one thing that I found, at least in my journey, when I'm learning things, there's a lot of lingo. And what would end up happening is I would end up having tab over tab over tab over tab of a deep rabbit hole because I would continue to Google the term that I didn't understand. So someone will have a tutorial talk about like JavaScript array methods. That's another talk I did because every documentation and tutorial I've read didn't do it for me. So I had to continue searching as far as I could to find something that clicked. And this is why I encourage everyone who is already have experience to kind of keep these people in mind. It doesn't matter if you have experience or not. The simpler you're able to explain something, the better it is for everyone, even for experienced programmers who may not have come back to this and may have forgotten about it over time. But if anything, the best advice I can give is don't be afraid to kind of research. It might take some time, but really research and try to find the resources that work for you. If a blog post is not doing it for you, try a video. If a video course is not doing it for you, find a different person who explains it in a different way. People explain things in their own way, and unfortunately, sometimes it's just scouring the internet to find the one that makes sense to you and who explains it to you in the way that you understand. So,
Thank you so much for that. So I think time's up.
sure.
Um, but thank you so much for being here at CUSEC this year with your talk. For the rest of the other CUSEC viewers, we have a workshop by Kinaxis about supply chain management. So please be sure to check that in the sessions tab on the left-hand side. Otherwise, we're going to end this. Thank
Sweet.
you.
Yep, I'll see you in the Discord. Bye.